All right, welcome guys. Coach Roel here once again. I have a special treat this time around. We have Christin and Rod Blunk, alumni students, or recent alumni students, and just wanted to be able to catch up with them and kind of shine a light, as we were saying just before I hit the record button, just to find out how they're doing and how they've taken this self-storage knowledge that they've been exposed to and how they fit it into their own lifestyles. So, Christin and Rod, thanks for taking the time. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Awesome. So I know you guys are busy, so I guess I want to kind of jump right on in. What kind of real estate investing experience did you guys have just before coming into like joining the community of self-storage investors under Scott Myers?
Sure. So in 2012, Rod and I started real estate investing. We are a husband and wife team. He has a full-time W-2 job now, and so I'm primarily full-time in the real estate investing. But we started out on the residential side, fixing and flipping. I think our first fix and flip was an auction property that Rod bought without me being there. I was a little nervous, but it worked out well.
Wow.
And we really got an idea that this works. We could really make money doing this. And so from there, we really started expanding our fix and flip. You know, we do anywhere probably between 8 to 10 properties a year. We also have a portfolio of residential single-family homes. And we have been doing that since 2012. And I think in the last year, I really wanted to start generating passive income and really wanted to get out of the residential side. I also have a wholesaling background. I wholesaled numerous properties over the last couple of years as well. So we decided to look into the commercial side. I didn't want to go into office space or retail space, and self-storage asset class was very attractive to me. And so we decided this year, early on, probably shortly after COVID hit, to really dive deep, dig in, and educate ourselves and move forward. And we've got a goal to purchase our first facility by the end of this year. So we don't have much time left, so at least we can get one under contract.
Right. Well, before we speed along too far, Rod, what's your background, experience-wise, professionally, work-wise?
So I'm a retired Navy sub guy. I transitioned also into power and propulsion development, research and development projects for the Navy. Been doing that for a little while, as well as some stuff for the Department of Energy and wave energy and renewable energy. But mainly operations, taking things from a new project and seeing it all the way through to the operational aspect. So I bring in the operational side. My wife, I'm a handyman, kind of the guy who's a tinkerer by heart. So she'll say, okay, I like this. How are we going to make it what we want it to be? And I got to come up with that. So no pressure. I just have to figure it out. I enjoy that aspect of it. And then I challenge her back of why aren't we getting into this? So we're kind of yin and yang when it comes to the projects. I'll think it's good and then she'll beat me down with it, or she'll think it's good and I'll say, well, that's not quite how that's going to work. But we finally work it out. And so far, knock on wood, we've done really well in what we've done by the challenging aspects of it. Not to say that we don't have these conversations a lot of, okay, how are we doing? But we do challenge each other. And I think my operational background and just the ability to work with people, because I've led people, helps out in that aspect.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like Christin, she's the full-time one to go looking for the deals and then initially getting them under contract or closing on them. And then once they're in your portfolio, is that where Rod, you come in?
Yeah, I come into that aspect and just saying, okay, what can we do? And then I start challenging and figuring it out. Okay, here's my group of contractors. We established a pretty good contractor base right now in our residential area that we use. Now I'm looking at all the things we can do to a self-storage to make it easier, even though it's an active investment, but make it an easier active investment so that when we grow our organization, and again, we're going to be a family-owned business, that we grow it properly, right? We have our goals and our core competencies that we want to maintain. And I get to oversee some of that with guidance.
He's a good problem solver, so it works out well.
Awesome. Now, I just lost my train of thought there, but in terms of you, Christin, you mentioned that you want to get out of the residential side. Did that idea come up before you were exposed to any of the self-storage investing?
No, the idea had come up because we had a family crisis. My husband was diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer a couple of years ago, and he's doing very well now.
Okay.
But going through those treatments and seeing, how much I needed to be there for him and care for him and how incapacitated he was, I really started thinking about our financial goals. And we have 3 children, and I really, the numbers that I wanted to be in a position where, God forbid, if we ever go down that path again, that we don't have to rely on Rod's income to continue our life the way that we are living it now.
Right.
And so when I sat down and put together the numbers that I really needed to get at with the residential, I quickly realized that that's not how I wanted to go. It was going to take too long. It was going to take too many doors, and I didn't have the bandwidth or the capacity to want to go in that direction. So that's what inspired me to really start looking outside of the residential real estate investing world and more into the commercial real estate investing world. And so, we've looked at a couple mobile home parks, RV parks, all of that. And I really thought that the self-storage was more an asset class that we wanted to handle more so than the other investment classes.
So, because I know we often will promote the master classes, the 60 to 90 minute master classes that I do online, as there's a ringer, a catchphrase that says, "Without the hassles of tenants, toilets, and trash."
Yes.
Yep.
But you had mentioned that it just as a residential single family home, residential real estate as a class just wasn't enough to reach the goals that you had set for yourself.
In the time frame, yes.
In the time frame, interesting. So you were okay with dealing with tenants, toilets, and trash? You were actually.
I didn't really want to go in that direction.
No, we were looking to move out of the. I mean, we kind of like the fix and flip was fun. You could do your own little thing into there and see a nice product in. We had and we still have some tenants with rental houses we have, and as you said, that's not fun. We know it's not fun. That's why we started looking at, we want to own land more than we want to own problems. And so we started looking at that. And the mobile home parks, we almost had a bid on one and tell some things we found out that, you always find stuff out when you start doing due diligence. So we had to walk away. But the plan was basically, own the land. And then we started really digging deep into, what other asset class still meets that goal, right? The RV park was kind of the transit. So you went to the mobile home, now you went down to the RV park, and then we ended up basically, the spotlight shows that the self-storage is the one that, I don't really have as many toilets or problems. I do have some issues, but for the most sake, the people that are using self-storage need the self-storage. Yeah. And overall, it started hitting the boxes a lot easier than all the other ones we were looking at.
Yeah, I think, for what we were trying to get out of it and to accomplish in our lives, it was really to build up the passive income. I know there's an active income portion of it, but I feel like there's less hassle, like you said, without the tenants and the trash and the broken toilets. It's not something I wanted to get into. So when I was looking at the number of doors that I needed on a residential side to meet my goal, and realized the headaches that would come along with owning that many doors, I didn't want to go that route. We already have a portfolio of residential properties that's enough headache, and I don't really want to grow that.
Yeah, it's difficult to, kind of like, I think I understand where you're coming from. It's when you want to scale up on residential side, then there's that many more residents, and you're dealing with people's homes.
Right. And the infrastructure to scale up is significantly different than the infrastructure you're going to need as a company to scale up on the commercial side. I mean, there's different aspects in all degrees, but for what we want to do as a family-owned business, you really can't do that on the residential as easily, because you need the property management and all those items, as opposed to on a family business, in keeping with what we believe in, we can do that easier on the self-storage facility. So again, we started cutting our path down from all these potential areas to invest to, this is what we got our focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're all in.
Yeah. We've had good discussions.
You're all in?
The Mastermind group, right? We had one that we've been looking at that was a car wash that looked really good because of the numbers, and you get drunk on numbers when you start looking at it. But when you start talking about what's your business plan and your core competencies, and you talk to others, they help reassert what we've already known. And it's good to hear that. And that was nice to hear that from our first Mastermind group that we attended just recently as well. So, it just reinforces that we have made good decisions. We've learned some from bad ones, but the good decisions is the path we're planning on.
Right. And Christin, you mentioned before we started recording this call, you mentioned you have a few commercial. Are they commercial? I forget. Are they commercial residential or office or?
Office. So
Office.
I own, with a couple of partners, we own 4 office buildings. And I think there's, between the 4 office buildings, there's 10 or 15 units in each office building.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, where is your portfolio around where you live, or are they across the country, or?
So our residential portfolio is not where we live. They're across country. We own a few properties in Indianapolis.
And you live where?
In Maryland, Annapolis,
Okay.
Maryland. Yep. So, the acquisition cost, it's not that you can't cash flow here in Maryland, but the property values are a little bit higher. And to make it work, the numbers don't always make sense. So we went outside of our state to find, a more tenant-friendly state, and where the values, the acquisition cost to get in and the entry points are less, and the cash flow is greater. So,
and the commercial office buildings?
Commercial is in Maryland. It's not too far from me.
Okay. So that's leading up to a question I wanted to ask you, and a bit of a devil's advocate question. Both of you as a team have obviously above average level amount of experience in real estate investing. So you already have some commercial. I know probably the question on some people's minds that might be watching this is why would you seek out education and join a group? Like, you already have done well without them. You've got an impressive portfolio coming from the perspective of someone who may have never gone into real estate yet. So you got a lot of residential, you're wholesaling, you must have some systems, you got commercial properties. Why would you need anybody else to help you get into self-storage? Couldn't you just figure it out on your own?
I could at a cost, I'm sure, right? I mean, there's always a cost, but I believe in relationships. I believe in cultivating those relationships, and really building your network in the areas that you really want to grow in. There's people out there that are so much more successful than I am and Rod is, and just to tap into them and just learn from them and absorb everything that you possibly can is just priceless. And I have a little bit of experience in the commercial, but I really didn't know how to underwrite, evaluate self-storage, and I'm cautious when it comes to that. I really want to understand my numbers and make sure it makes sense for me and that I'm thinking of everything. So I wanted that baseline education, which I got with, Scott Myers and his group. And it was very, very instrumental, and I learned a lot. And we quickly joined the Mastermind because I do believe in relationships and cultivating them. And it's just invaluable. The group has just been very helpful, very supportive, and is always there to answer any questions that we have. And I just feel like honestly, yes, it costs money to get the education, but it's going to cost you money one way or another. And I wanted to accelerate. It's going to take me longer to go and do this by myself than it would, educating myself and also surrounding myself with people who have already forged that way in that path. And so
I have a slightly different way of looking at it, but it comes about the same way. So, like I said, I'm a retired Navy officer, right? So you think you can do a lot of things. Well, I'm a submarine officer. So although it's kind of like you said, although we have a great understanding of the real estate market with regarding to flipping homes and renters, right? Same with me as a submarine. That doesn't mean I'm going to go drive the surface ship. If I had to go and drive a surface ship and be an ace at it, right? It's going to take a learning curve, even though I am experienced. And I'm not going to go out there, nor is somebody going to say, here's the keys, just go drive. They're going to say, let's see what you know, give me the feedback, and guide me on the things I don't know. Case in point is the same thing we got out of this. And what I see, again, I get to dabble because I get to jump back from my day job and help out on the night job and come back to the day job. So I get it related is, hey, look, this guides me from going to be dangerous, where I could take more risk because of what I knew in my background. It won't apply exactly the same into what I need to do with self-storage facilities. So the educational aspect, or just again, back to the relationships of being able to talk to somebody, hey, I've done this. Have you looked at this aspect? Yes, this is why sometimes it doesn't work. Be careful. And that is what you don't get from just going out and doing it yourself. And those aspects help, especially when you're not a spring chicken like myself, to get ourselves, ahead of the curve where we need to be in our goals.
That's great. Yeah, you touched upon a couple of things that I also try to communicate in the initial masterclass, which is largely virtual these days, is time, right? You could probably figure it out, like you mentioned, Kristen, that but at what cost? And it's not always just a monetary cost. There's the cost of not knowing what you don't know, but there's also the cost of getting up to speed on that learning curve.
Yeah.
Right. Trial and error naturally takes longer than learning from somebody else who's already made those mistakes and says, here, you can avoid this mistake that I made and do it this way.
Absolutely.
You agree with that?
Yeah.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah. In terms of
hard lessons.
Yeah. And I totally understand what you mean too, with some background in flipping, and I'm in Orlando, Florida, and Airbnb and short-term, long-term rentals and some multifamilies. You don't necessarily want to learn by trial and error anymore. It's just like, just give me the answer. I'll put in the work, and that way I can get to my goals, which is what the last kind of topic area I wanted to touch upon with you guys is, why do all this stuff? I know you mentioned a little bit earlier, Kristen, but now being optimistic and hoping everybody will stay healthy going forward, where would you guys like to be? What will self-storage, adding self-storage to your portfolio do for you as a family?
So, obviously it will help us free up our time and his time. We've got 3 kids, teenagers, that we're putting through private school and colleges, and that will help too. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I just really want to put us in a comfortable position where we have income coming in. God forbid anything happens to us. I could stick my head in the sand and say nothing's going to happen to us, but that's not going to help us achieve our goals and get to where we want to be. I also want our kids to see what Rod and I are doing and know that, there's ways to go out there to make money. And it's not always about the money, for sure, but you can do this, and this is how we're doing it. And we'd like to teach them along the way, and build a legacy for them, and hopefully whatever legacy we leave behind, they can continue to grow and keep going, whether it's giving back, whether it's building wealth, whatever it is, whatever that allows you to do. Mm-hmm. And for the next 5 years, I would like to build up $30,000 of passive income a month coming in, at least, over the next 5 years. That's our big goal. And that will get us to the point where, okay, Rod, you're on board full time and we're okay. Right. We can support ourselves without having any type of, job that he has to do.
So Rod, I guess one of the last few questions to you, 12 months from now, if we were to invite you back and catch up with you and see where are they now, what would you like that to look like in October of 2021?
So in October of 2021, we will have our first facility. That facility will have some bumps and bruises on it, but it will be ours. We will have our second facility probably in the works, if not somewhere in the contractual phase. I'm based on we've been growing a couple of relationships from what we're doing with our VAs and returning calls and our mailers, and we expect to have the second one probably by then. And working to get that. We'll also at that time, hopefully maybe a flipped one using some of the knowledge we got from our flipping processes in the past, but also growing our network and taking people like us who is this what we want to do? Can we get there? And just giving back our experience, right? Because I'm not a person out there that says, you know, I'm going to cut that guy's throat off just to be ahead of him. I'm a farm boy, grew up in farmland. We help people get better, regardless of what it is, because at the end of the day, they're going to come back around. And you know what? I'm hoping we're helping out people. I've always said that as a leader, you never stop being a student. And as long as you realize that, we're looking forward to just doing that relationship, learning and growing, and be ready in year 3 that we have. Year 3, I think our plan says we're going to have 3 to 4 under our belts. So that's going to be, I think we have about halfway through our 5-year plan on what we give for monthly cash flow. So at year 10, we're ready to go. And then at year 10, we'll reevaluate. We'll see if we're going to push it further, or are we happy with what we've done and established a wealth for our futures. So that's what it's like. Hopefully in year 1, I can tell you where what we bought, and tell you the one we can't tell you the one we're looking to get, but, and then what our plans are for the following 2 to make it.
Very cool. Christin, what about your thoughts on a year from now? Where would you like to be?
I would definitely like to have a couple of properties or a couple of self-storage units owning and operating under my belt. Also want to be an equity partner in some of the developmental projects that are going on out there. You know, I think that while that's more of a passive side, I will be more in tune to really what it takes to build and develop. I'm not there. I don't want to do that yet, but it's not, I'm not ruling it out when I get more experience under my belt about owning and operating an existing facility and expanding those facilities. And I really, you know, we're working on, our systems are in place, but there's always room to fine tune them. So I'm hoping that we'll get more efficient, and we'll start adding on some people, you know, to help us out with the mailings and the cold callings, and I can kind of step away and run the business from an outside viewpoint versus the day-to-day operations too. And we do have a VA, and she's extremely helpful. So, and she does a lot of cold calling for us, and she's very good at it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really great. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your schedules to, you know, people say it all the time, but truly to be able to get a glimpse of how your family business operates, or at least a little bit, and finding out what, you know, the timelines that you're saying sound to me very realistic, because I used to be a traditional financial advisor for over 8 years, and it's been almost just as long since I left the industry. But your timelines are very, very, very realistic. And oftentimes people who come into something new like this, or just, you know, you hear about this, learn how to invest in real estate with no money down and none of your own money and blah, 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 et cetera. While you and I know there's a reality to that, I think people buy into too much the fact that it's like a get rich quick. Not really, but it's kinda. Yeah. But you have a very realistic outlook for yourselves. And I think that's very valuable to the people who may be watching the video that we're having. So for that, I really, really appreciate it. And I think
it takes commitment, you know, it doesn't happen overnight. That's for sure.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. And you guys have put in a lot of work, and you're still ready to put in a lot of work, and you have very realistic goals. I think that's amazing. So I kind of put you on the spot and say, can we invite you back around 12 months from now and see where we are? It's kind of like a time capsule.
We will be a success story. I promise you that.
That's awesome. That is great. So thanks again. Again, my name's Coach Roel for Self-Storage Investing, and we've been talking with Christin and Rod Blunk. Thank you very much, you guys. And hopefully we'll when this COVID thing lifts and we can meet each other at one of the gatherings that we have planned in the near future.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. We appreciate your time.
Yeah.
All right. Take care. All the best.
Thanks.
Thanks again for joining us here at Self-Storage Investing. We really, really appreciate it. For more great content like this, make sure to click the subscribe button below this video. And be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and BiggerPockets. You can also visit us at our main website at selfstorageinvesting.com, where you'll find even more free content, our ebook, and registration to our free webinars and education courses, and much, much more. Once again, for more great content like this, please click the subscribe button below. Thank you.